Winterfell was colder than usual that year, but the chill in Lord Eddard Stark's heart had nothing to do with the snow. The boy, Jon Snow, his so-called bastard, had grown quiet, thoughtful, and sharp. He was just like his mother, though Jon didn't know the truth. No one did, but Ned knew time was running out. Robert Baratheon was growing reckless in King's Landing, and Queen Cersei's children, well, they weren't Robert's at all. Ned had seen the truth and nearly died because of it once. He wouldn't make that mistake again. Ned stood near the godswood, looking at the red leaves falling gently from the heart tree. He remembered Lyanna's last words. "Promise me, Ned." And he had. He kept that promise for 16 years, raising Jon under his roof, letting the world believe he'd dishonored Catelyn, suffered her quiet scorn all these years, all to protect Jon. But Jon was more than a Snow. He was a Targaryen, Aegon Targaryen, the last true-born son of Rhaegar and Lyanna, a prince with a claim to the Iron Throne, and if the wrong ears heard of it, he'd be dead by sunrise. So Ned made a decision that night, one he hadn't made in years. He would gather allies, lords who were loyal, honest, and unshaken by power, not to rebel, not yet, but to protect Jon, to prepare for the storm that was coming. First, he sent ravens to Lord Wyman Manderley of White Harbour. Wyman had always been a quiet ally, fat and underestimated by most, but clever and fiercely loyal to House Stark. "Come to Winterfell," the letter read. "Old promises must be honoured." Next was Lord Howland Reed of Greywater Watch, the only man alive who knew Jon's true parentage. He had been with Ned at the Tower of Joy, had fought the Kingsguard beside him, had heard Lyanna's cries, had seen the blood-soaked bed. If there was one man Ned trusted more than himself, it was Howland Reed. Then Lord Glover of Deepwood Motte, Lady Barbary Dustin, though she hated the Starks, her hatred for the Lannisters ran deeper, and even Lord Serwyn. He sent them all simple messages, vague but enough to make them come. Robb watched his father closely during those days. "Why call the bannerman, father?" he asked one evening. Ned looked at his son and saw the man he was becoming. "There are truths I can no longer keep buried, and when they rise, they will bring fire with them." Jon, meanwhile, was preparing to join the Night's Watch. He didn't know that everything was about to change. He still thought he was unwanted. A Snow. A mistake. But that night, Ned stood at his door. "Come with me," he said. They walked together under the moonlight, past the towers of Winterfell and into the crypts below. Jon had never been there with Ned before. He looked at the statues of Stark kings and lords, all cold stone and frozen history. Then Ned stopped at Lyanna's tomb. Jon frowned. "Why are we here?" Ned didn't answer at first. He looked at his sister's statue and swallowed hard. "You're not my bastard, Jon," he said finally. Jon blinked, confused. "What do you mean?" Ned turned to him. "Your mother was Lyanna, and your father was Rhaegar Targaryen." Silence. It echoed louder than any scream. "That's not possible," Jon whispered. "She was kidnapped. He raped her." "No," Ned said firmly. "They loved each other. They were married in secret. You were born at the Tower of Joy, and I've lied to protect you ever since." Jon staggered back. His world was cracking. Everything he believed was breaking. "Then, I'm not a Stark." "You're more than a Stark," Ned said. "You're fire and ice, and the realm will come for you once they know. That's why I've called the Northern Lords, to shield you, to guide you, and when the time comes, to fight beside you." Jon's knees gave out. He sat on the cold stone floor, eyes wide. "I don't want a crown." Ned knelt beside him. "Neither did I, but sometimes we don't get to choose. We just do what's right." Upstairs, the ravens were already flying, but not all wings bring safety. Some bring blood. The sun barely rose the next day, hidden behind thick grey clouds. It was as if the North itself sensed the weight of what was coming. Ned Stark stood at the top of the battlements, eyes fixed on the road stretching out from Winterfell. Somewhere out there, his ravens were being read, and loyal men were either preparing to ride or preparing to betray. Inside the castle, Jon didn't leave his chambers. He barely slept. His thoughts spun like a storm. Lyanna Stark was my mother, Rhaegar Targaryen my father. Everything he had known about himself was a lie. He thought he was nothing. Now he was something far too dangerous, a Targaryen. A name cursed across Westeros. He stared into the small fire in his room, watching the wood crackle and split. The flames reminded him of dragons, of Valyria, of fire. That was his blood? Fire? There was a soft knock. Robb entered, his face tight. With concern. "You didn't show at the yard," Robb said. "You never miss sword training." Jon looked at him but didn't answer. Robb stepped closer. "What's going on, Jon? Father's acting strange. The bannermen are arriving. Even the White Harbor fleet was spotted off the coast. Are we at war?" Jon took a shaky breath. "I'm not who you think I am, Robb." Robb narrowed his eyes. "What are you talking about?" Jon stood, facing his brother. No, his cousin. "I'm not your brother. I'm not a Stark. My mother was your Aunt Lyanna." Robb froze. "And my father was Rhaegar Targaryen." Robb's jaw dropped. That doesn't make sense. Rhaegar, he kidnapped her." Jon shook his head. "That's what they told us. But it was a lie. They were married. I was born at the Tower of Joy." Robb stumbled back, trying to make sense of it. "But that means you're not a bastard." Jon nodded. "I have a name. Aegon Targaryen." The room fell into silence. Again, heavy and sharp, Robb finally sat down. He rubbed his face and muttered, "Gods help us." Down in the great hall, Ned Stark sat at the high table, watching as the lords arrived one by one. Lord Manderley, massive as ever, arrived first, waddling in but with sharp eyes. Lady Dustin came cold and quiet. Lord Serwyn, young but strong. House Glover, fierce and proud. Even Howland Reed had come, which was a miracle on its own. His people rarely left their moving fortress. They gathered, sat, whispered. Then Ned stood. He looked around at the men and women before him. These were not southern lords chasing gold and titles. These were wolves, northern wolves. Their loyalty ran deep. "I thank you for coming," Ned began. "What I say here must not leave this room." The hall fell dead silent. "You all remember the rebellion," he continued. "You remember the lies we were told, that my sister Lyanna was taken and raped by Prince Rhaegar, that Robert avenged her." They nodded. "But that is not the truth. There were murmurs. She loved Rhaegar. They were wed in secret. She died giving birth to his son. Now the murmurs became gasps. His name is Aegon Targaryen. He lives. He has lived in my home as my son, under the name Jon Snow." Lord Glover stood. "You mean to say the last dragon lives in Winterfell?" "I mean to say the last rightful heir to the Iron Throne lives," Ned said. "And I have protected him at the cost of my honor. But now he needs more than just me." Lady Dustin leaned forward. "Why now, Lord Stark? Why bring this to us after all these years?" Ned's voice grew harder. "Because the Lannisters grow bolder. Because King Robert is surrounded by vipers. Because secrets never stay buried forever. And when the truth comes out, they will come for him. To kill him. To end the bloodline." "Lord." Manderley nodded slowly. "And what do you ask of us?" "I ask you to swear your loyalty to him," Ned said. "To protect him if I fall. To guide him, should the storm reach our gates." Lord Serwyn was the first to speak up. "The boy has Stark blood, and if you trust him, Lord Stark, then so do I." One by one they swore. Not loud, not proud. Quiet, firm oaths, the kind made in winter in the north. Later that night, Jon stood outside the great hall, heart pounding. He had heard the voices, the words. He was no longer hidden. He was now a piece on the board. Ned came out and stood beside him. "You didn't have to do this," Jon whispered. "You could have let me. Go to the wall, I'd have been safe." "There is no safety in hiding," Ned said. "Not anymore." Jon turned to him. "What do I do now?" Ned looked at him with quiet pride. "You learn, you listen, you survive, and when the time comes, you lead." Jon wasn't ready for any of this. He wanted to go back to being a Snow, but that name was gone now. He was Aegon Targaryen, and the wolves had gathered. But far to the south in King's Landing, a raven was intercepted. A sealed letter from Winterfell, and Cersei Lannister's cold eyes narrowed as she read the name written in black ink, Aegon Targaryen. She smiled like a blade. "So, the wolf has raised a dragon." King's Landing always smelled like rot and gold, luxury layered over filth. And in the Red Keep, behind doors carved with lions, Queen Cersei Lannister stared at the raven's letter with slow-burning fury. She paced her chamber in silence. Jaime watched from a chair near the window, swirling wine in his cup. "You look like you're ready to kill someone," he said casually. Cersei turned to him, eyes like ice. "I just might." She handed him the letter, intercepted by Varys's. "Little birds." Jaime read it slowly, lips tightening. "Aegon Targaryen, son of Rhaegar and Lyanna." He looked up. "This can't be true." "Oh, but it is," Cersei hissed, "and Eddard Stark has kept this secret under our nose for 16 years. While we played our games, he hid a dragon in the north." Jaime scoffed. "He's still a bastard. Even if Lyanna birthed him, he has no claim." Cersei's voice was sharp. "If they were married in secret, as this letter suggests, then he's the rightful heir, more than Dany, more than Robert's bastards, more than Joffrey, Tommen, even me." Jaime's grip on the goblet tightened. "So what now? You want him dead? I want his name burned from memory," she whispered. "We kill this dragon before it flies." She summoned Grand Maester Pycelle and Sir Meryn Trant. "Send a raven to the Eyrie, to Lysa Arryn. Tell her the North is plotting treason, that Eddard Stark hides a Targaryen under his roof. Remind her how her husband died. And," Pycelle wheezed, "tell her to stay loyal, or suffer." Back in Winterfell, Jon stood in the training yard, a wooden sword in hand. He swung harder than usual, sweat dripping into his eyes. His opponent, a grizzled guard named Jory, grunted as Jon struck again and again. "Better," Jory said, panting. "You fight like someone with something to lose." Jon lowered the sword, breathing hard. "I have more than that. I have something to prove." Robb stood nearby, watching with arms crossed. The air between them was different now. Not bitter, but distant. They were still close, but something invisible had cracked. "How do you feel?" Robb asked quietly. "Like the world changed overnight," Jon replied. "I keep waiting to wake up." Robb gave him a sad smile. "Welcome to our world. You're one of us now, the ones who carry names that mean war." Just then, a horn sounded from the gate. Riders approached. One carried a white banner with a falcon flying over a moon. The Vale Maester Luwin hurried to Lord Stark's solar. "My lord, riders from the Eyrie bring a message. Lady Lysa Arryn demands to speak in person." Ned's heart sank. "She's too unstable to trust. If she's been spooked, this could all fall apart." But it was too late to stop it. By nightfall, Lady Lysa Arryn herself entered Winterfell, wrapped in blue furs, her face sharp and paranoid. Her son Robin clung to her side, twitchy and pale. She refused to eat, refused to sit. "You've brought doom upon the realm, Ned," she snapped. "You've kept a dragon in your home, a Targaryen." Ned stayed calm. "He is my blood. He is Lyanna's son." Lysa stepped closer. "That makes it worse. Do you think Robert will forgive you? Do you think Cersei will?" Ned clenched his fists. I do not care what Cersei thinks. She is a lion wearing a crown made of lies. And lies protect us, Lisa spat. Do you want war? I want the truth to survive, Ned said quietly. I want my nephew alive, Lisa's eyes narrowed. Then keep him hidden. If you march him south, if you declare him, it will be all our heads. Jon listened from the shadows behind the hall. Every word felt like fire inside his chest. He didn't ask for this life. He didn't want to be anyone's heir, but he couldn't hide forever. He was tired of hiding. Later that night, Jon found his way to the Godswood, where the heart tree stood white and silent under the stars. Arya sat beneath it, poking a stick into the snow. She looked up. You look like you've seen a ghost. Jon sat beside her. Maybe I am one. Arya tilted her head. You're still Jon to me. Doesn't matter what anyone says. He smiled. She was the only one who hadn't looked at him differently. I don't want to be a Targaryen, Jon said softly. I don't even know what that means. Arya shrugged. Then don't be. Be yourself. Whatever name you wear, it's your choice what you become. He hugged her tightly, but across the courtyard shadows moved. One of Lady Lisa's guards, a man loyal not to the north but to gold, slipped into the kennels and fed something into the dog's food. A quiet betrayal, poison meant for a snow. That night, one of the dire wolves began to foam at the mouth. Shaggy Dog, Rickon's wolf, thrashed in pain, yelping until the Maester came. Ned was called immediately. It's poison, Maester, Lewin said grimly. There's no mistake. Someone had made their first move. Jon stood beside Rickon, watching the small boy sob. His hands clenched into fists. The war had begun. Not on a battlefield. Not with armies, but in the shadows, with poison and whispers, and Jon Snow, Aegon Targaryen, was now the center of it all. By morning, Winterfell had changed. The poison in Shaggy Dog had set off a quiet alarm across the castle. The direwolves were more than pets. They were protectors, spirit animals. For one to be targeted was a declaration, not just of hate but of intent. Someone wanted blood. Ned ordered the gates shut. No one in, no one out. Guards doubled their watch. Servants moved with their heads low, whispering. The hallways, once filled with laughter and clanging swords, felt colder now, tighter. Ned stood in the great hall, surrounded by his bannermen and a few loyal retainers. On the long table before them sat a small clay vial, found behind the kennels. That was slipped into the food, Maester Lewin explained. Nightshade mixed with goat's milk. Quiet, deadly. Who did it? Lord Glover demanded. Ned turned to the guards. We're still searching. Lady Dustin stood up, face pale but furious. Someone in this castle wants the boy dead. They tried to kill a direwolf to send a message. This isn't politics anymore. This is war. Jon stood at the edge of the hall, quiet, listening. He hadn't slept. He couldn't. All night he had replayed the moment in his mind. Rickon crying, Shaggy Dog dying, the fear in everyone's eyes. All because of him. Because he existed. His name was a threat. Later that day, Jon found himself in the crypts again, staring at Lyanna's statue. It didn't look like her. Not really. Stone was cold and blind. But the thought that she had held him, named him, begged her brother to keep him safe. It burned in his chest. I didn't ask for any of this, he whispered to the dark. I would have gone to the wall. I would have worn black. I would have stayed out of it. Footsteps echoed behind him. Ned Jon didn't turn. I'm putting people in danger, Jon said quietly. Rickon, the others, you were always in danger, Jon, Ned said. We just didn't speak it aloud. Jon turned now. So what do we do? Hide me forever? Ned didn't answer right away. He stepped beside the statue and touched the cold edge of Lyanna's face. The South knows, he said finally. Cersei knows. Maybe Robert too by now. That poison wasn't just meant to kill. It was a warning. They're coming. John looked at him, heart pounding. Then let them. Ned blinked. John stepped closer. Let them come, but let me be ready when they do. You want to fight? I want to survive, John said. If I die, let it be with a sword in my hand, not choking on a lie. There was pride in Ned's eyes, buried under the grief. I will train you myself, Ned said. Over the next few days, Winterfell transformed. The castle became a fortress. Guards practiced in tighter formations. John trained with Robb, Ned, even Lord Glover. He was slower than the knights, but quicker on his feet. He learned to read movement, predict the angle of an attack, stay calm under pressure. The fire in him, the dragon, was starting to wake. But the pressure grew. Ravens brought news from the south. Robert was ill. Rumors of poison or grief. No one knew for sure. But the worst part, Tywin Lannister had left Casterly Rock. He was riding east with 2,000 men. Ned read the Raven in silence, then burned it. If Tywin was moving, Cersei wasn't just reacting. She was planning something. Preemptive. Dangerous. Meanwhile, Lady Lisa had grown more paranoid by the hour. She stayed locked in her room with her son, refusing food from the kitchens. They'll poison us next, she said to her guards. Ned visited her on the 5th day. You should leave, he said. Lisa flinched. You're expelling me? I'm protecting you, she scoffed. From your own monster child. Ned's voice dropped. From what's coming. Tywin Lannister is on the move. And if he marches on the Vale, you'll need every friend you have. Lisa stared at him. Then, with shaking hands, she nodded. Fine, but mark my words, Ned. This dragon of yours will burn us all. She left that night. But what no one saw was that one of her guards stayed behind, not loyal to her, loyal to gold. He slipped a message out of Winterfell, hidden inside a saddlebag, bound for the twins, where Lord Walder Frey could be bought, and where Lannister coin flowed freely. The message was simple. He is here, the boy, the dragon, the North gathers for war. That night Jon sat by the fire with Arya and Robb. Bran was asleep beside them. Ghost lay curled near the flames. I heard father might send you south, Robb said quietly. Jon looked up. Why? To meet with the Blackfish. Tully support. And could help, Arya frowned. It's too dangerous. Jon gave a small smile. Danger is all I have now. Arya tossed a pebble into the fire. Then take Needle. She'll bite if they try anything. Jon laughed softly, but Robb's face stayed serious. You're not alone, Jon, whatever comes. I'll fight beside you. Jon met his eyes. Even if I'm not your brother? You're more than that, Robb said. You're my blood. My brother by choice, not by name. And just then, a raven flew in through the high windows. A scroll. Ned opened it at the high table, read it once, and sat back hard, his face pale, his voice hollow. King Robert is dead, and across the realm, the game began to play its next piece. The throne was empty, and Cersei held the crown. But in the north, a dragon was learning how to breathe fire. Winter had always made Winterfell feel like the center of the world. Thick snow piled on stone walls, smoke curled from chimneys, and wolves howled under pale moons. But now, with King Robert dead and the Iron Throne in Lannister hands, it felt more like a target painted red. Ned Stark sat alone in his solar, staring at the letter again. The seal had been broken. The black wax cracked. Robert Baratheon's reign, loud, drunken and dangerous, was over. Cersei would crown Joffrey, and no one would dare object. The realm would call it peace. But Ned knew better. Peace built on lies always ends in blood. A knock at the door. Enter, he said. Not. Looking up, it was Jon. Is it true? Jon asked quietly. Is the king dead? Ned folded the parchment and set it aside. Yes, Jon nodded slowly. Then, Joffrey is king? No, Ned said. Joffrey is not Robert's son. His blood is Lannister. Jon froze. He hadn't expected that. Then who? By blood? Ned stood. By law? You! Jon's chest tightened. Me? You are the last living male Targaryen with a legitimate claim, Ned said. Daenerys is far across the narrow sea, and Viserys is dead. That throne was your father's by right. Now it passes to you. Jon felt sick. The words felt heavy. Wrong. I'm not a king. You were born one, Ned replied, and now they'll try to kill you for it. Jon sat down slowly, staring at his hands. They were calloused, meant for swords, not crowns. What would you have me do? He asked. Nothing yet, Ned said. We'll send word to Riverrun, seek the Tullys. If the Riverlands join us, the North has strength. Enough to defend you, maybe even enough to make demands. Jon shook his head. And if they don't? Then we run, Ned said simply. South, east, north of the wall if we must, but we will not hand you over. That night the hall was quiet. The fire crackled low. Lords murmured in corners. Maester Luwin whispered with Lord Manderley, exchanging grim predictions. Jon stood on the balcony above the courtyard. Snow fell gently around him. Robb joined him, wrapped in a thick fur cloak. He said nothing for a long time. Just stood there beside his brother, not by blood but by bond. They'll call you a pretender, Robb finally said. They'll say you're the second coming of the Mad King. Jon nodded. I know. Will you fight it? Jon looked over the snowy lands. No. You'll claim it? I don't want it, Jon said softly, but I won't let them take it from me just to feel safe. If they come with swords, I'll meet them with fire. Robb smiled faintly. That sounds like a king to me. 2 nights later, the hall was filled with firelight, meat, and maps. The northern lords gathered around Ned, who spoke low but firm. The Lannisters will not wait, he said. Cersei will crown Joffrey and claim legitimacy. But Robert never named him heir. I have seen the truth of his blood. What proof do we have? Asked Lord Serwyn. Truth dies easily in the south. Ned held up a sealed scroll. Robert's last will, signed with his own hand, naming me protector of the realm until his rightful heir comes of age. Dustin snorted. And who decides what rightful means now? The realm will not, Ned replied, but the North can. There was a heavy pause. Then Lord Manderley spoke. If we name the boy, Jon, as Aegon Targaryen, we defy the crown. We already do, Ned said. They've sent poison, they've sent spies, they'll send steel next. Silence. And then, one by one, they agreed. A pact was formed in firelight and fear. If the Lannisters moved north, they would meet resistance. But what no one saw, what even Ned Stark missed, was the shadow lurking in the lowest halls of Winterfell. The one who had stayed behind. When Lysa Arryn left, Sir Miles, he had moved through Winterfell like a ghost, polite, silent, always watching, a knight in appearance only. In truth, he was bought by gold from Casterly Rock, and that gold was about to buy betrayal. That same night, he slipped into the rookery, where the ravens slept in towers of straw. He sent one. It flew toward the twins, and the message it carried was short. He declares the Targaryen as king. The North prepares for rebellion. Winterfell stands alone. It was addressed to Tywin Lannister. The next morning, Ned summoned Jon to the heart tree once more. He carried a small box in his hands. Old black wood, dragon bone handle. I never meant for you to have this, Ned said quietly. But now, it may be the only thing that saves your life. He opened the box. Inside was a sword. Not Longclaw, this one was older, thinner, beautiful. Valyrian steel, dark and rippling like smoke. Darkfire, Ned said. It was brought to me after the rebellion. Once belonged to a Targaryen bastard, who fought for honor, not madness. Jon touched the blade. It hummed with something deep, ancient. Why give it to me now, he asked. Because what's coming? You'll need more than wolves, Ned said. You'll need fire. Jon nodded. He didn't feel like a prince, but as he looked into the blade, for the first time, he felt like something more than a bastard, something meant for war, and in the skies above the storm moved north. The lions were coming. Snow fell like ash. By the time the first horn sounded from the watchtower, Winterfell was already awake. Guards scrambled to the walls, archers notched their bows. The gate was sealed tight. Wolves howled in the distance, restless. Jon stood at the top of the battlements, the Valyrian steel sword Darkfire strapped to his back. His breath steamed in the cold morning air, but his blood ran hotter than ever. A raven had come just before dawn, its message brief. Tywin rides, 5,000 strong, South banners with him. He reaches Moat Cailin within days. Jon clenched. His fists. The Lannisters were coming. Inside the great hall, Ned stood before his lords once more, his face hard, voice calm. "They think the North will bend," he said. "They think we are divided. They are wrong." Lord Manderley stepped forward. "We will hold Moat Cailin. If they want Winterfell, they'll bleed for every stone." Lady Dustin added coldly, "Let the lion come. We've sharpened our claws." But Ned knew the truth. The North was strong, but not invincible. If the South came with gold and fire, the old walls might not stand. Worse, there were whispers, darker, more dangerous, that Cersei had sent gold to the Iron Islands. A new threat from the sea. They couldn't defend on every front. And so, Ned made a decision. That night he summoned Jon to the Godswood one last time. "You must leave," he said. Jon shook his head immediately. "No, you must," Ned insisted. "You are the target, the heir, the one they fear. If you stay, they will throw armies at our gates just to reach you. If you leave, they may hesitate." Jon stared at the heart tree. "Run again?" "Not run," Ned said. "Move, south, east. Whatever road you take, it must not lead you to death." Jon turned sharply. "I am done hiding. You made me a Targaryen. You gave me this blade. You told the lords to stand with me. And now I vanish?" "I am asking you to survive," Ned said, "so that one day, when the world is ready, you can return and claim what is yours, not with fear, but with fire and truth." Jon's voice cracked. "You'll fight without me?" "We'll fight for you." That silence that followed was thicker than snow, heavy with goodbye. By midnight, Jon rode, out with only a few companions. Ghost, of course, Arya, who had refused to let him go alone, Jory Cassell, and Theon Greyjoy, who insisted on keeping things interesting. Robb hugged him tight at the gate. "You'll come back," he said. "When winter ends," Jon whispered. Ned stood last, hand on his shoulder. "A ride fast, trust no one, and never forget who you are." Jon nodded. Then they were gone, their horses disappearing into the trees, swallowed by night and snow. 3 days later, the Lannisters reached Moat Cailin. Tywin himself stood at the front, cold as ever in gold armor, flanked by bannermen who'd been paid, not inspired. At his side rode Sir Gregor Clegane, the Mountain, and Sir Adam Marbrand. Behind them, 5,000 strong. They found the northern gates barred, manned and flaming with torches. Lord Glover rode to the top of the walls and shouted down, "Turn back, lion! The North remembers!" Tywin didn't flinch. "Hand over the Targaryen bastard, and we'll leave the rest breathing." "You won't find him," Glover replied. "And if you try, you'll choke on the North." So began the siege of Moat Cailin. The Lannisters attacked in waves, but the causeways were narrow, the swamps deep. Northern archers picked them off, like crows. Traps buried in the mud tore legs from horses and men alike. Fire rained from behind the battlements. Screams echoed in the fog. For 7 days, the lions bled. And then, on the 8th day, they stopped. Tywin's army pulled back, not broken, but slowed. They hadn't reached Winterfell. They wouldn't. Not yet. Far across the countryside, Jon and his group rode hard, covering ground through forests, streams, and frozen passes. They wore plain cloaks, carried no banners, and spoke to no one. But the land was dangerous. Bandits were hungry. Old rivals stirred. One night, just outside the neck, a group of sellswords found them. 5 against 4. They didn't recognize John, just saw a boy with a fine blade. "What's a sword like that?" "They're doing with a snow," the lead man sneered. John didn't answer. The fight was brutal. Arya moved like a shadow, needle dancing. Ghost tore into a man's leg. Theon took a dagger to the shoulder but stayed upright. And John moved like fire. He didn't think, he just struck. The blade sang, fast, clean, deadly. When the last man fell, Arya stared at John, panting. "That was dragon blood," Theon muttered, clutching his shoulder. John looked down. At his shaking hands, he didn't feel proud. He felt changed. The road ahead was long, but he wasn't a boy anymore. He wasn't just Jon Snow. He was Aegon Targaryen, and the realm would learn his name. Back in Winterfell, as snow continued to fall, Ned Stark stood at the top of the walls, watching the grey sky. Lady Dustin joined him. "You sent the boy away?" Ned nodded. "He must survive." She looked out over the frozen horizon. "Then I hope the gods are still listening." Because somewhere beyond the trees, a darker force stirred. Not lions, not wolves, but ice and death. The Game of Thrones was still being played, but the real war, the one that would decide all men's fates, had only just begun.